So students, today we have to discuss the topic, how is federalism practiced in India? So the constitutional provisions are necessary for the success of federalism, but these are not sufficient at all. So if the federal experiment has succeeded in India, it is not merely because of the clearly laid down laying out our constitutional provisions. The real success of federalism in India can be attributed to the nature of democratic politics in our country. This ensured that the spirit of federalism, respect for diversity, and the desire for living together became a shared ideals in our country. Now, let us look at some of the major ways in which this happened. So, in this topic, we'll be discussing what we have done to live together and how we have shown respect to our diversity, or what steps we have taken. So, how features of federalism are implemented in India? Basically, this thing we have to understand here. So, first is linguistic states. So, the first is linguistic states. So this is the first point, linguistic states. Now, in the linguistic states, the creation of the linguistic states was the one of the first and the major test for the democratic politics in our country. So, if we look at the political map of our country when it began its journey in 1947, and now if we compare it with 2021, then you will be surprised by the extent of changes we have seen. Many old states have been vanished, and many new states have been created. Areas, boundaries, and the names of the states have also been changed. And in 1947, the boundaries of the several old states were changed in order to create the new states. And this was done to ensure that the people who spoke the same languages, they live in the same states. And some states were created not on the basis of language, but to recognize differences which are based on ethnicity, culture, or geography. So many states like Nagaland, Uttarakhand, and Jharkhand were created like this. So after independence, I have told you about the linguistic states. The boundaries of the several old states were changed to create the new states, and this was done so as the people who belong to the same language, they share their common culture, ethnicity, and they could live in the same states. So after this, now the next point is language policy. Now the next point which we have to see here is the language policy, that how this has helped us in our case. So when we started demanding, so when we started the language policy, so when we started demanding the creation of the states on the basis of language, at that time many of our political leaders, they were apprehensive of this approach, because they fear that this will lead to the disintegration of the country. But the central government, they resisted this linguistic states on the basis of language for some time, but the experience has shown that the formation of the linguistic states on the basis of language have actually made our country more united, and also it has made the administration more easier. So in language policy, now we have to see that the second test for the Indian Federation is the language policy. So our constitution did not give us the status of any of the national language to, and the status of national language to any of the language is not given. So no status is given to any of the national language. Hindi is identified as the official language, but the central government has not imposed Hindi on the states where the people speak a different language. So 22 other languages are also recognized as a scheduled language by the Indian Constitution, and the candidate in the examination conducted for the central examination for the central government. Any central government position is there, for that the test is conducted. So the candidates may opt to take the examination in any of the three languages. Okay, the states to have their own official language, and much of the government works also take place in the official language of the concerned states. So this we have seen. Then in 1965, according to our constitution, the use of English language for the official purposes, it was stopped in 1965. Then many of the non-Hindi speaking states, they demanded the use of English also, that it should continue. And in Tamil Nadu, this movement was also taking a violent turn. Then the central government responded by agreeing that okay, we will continue with English also along with Hindi for the official purposes. So the government official policy is to promote Hindi, but the promotion of Hindi does not mean that the central government can impose Hindi on the states where people speak a different language. So the flexibility, this kind of flexibility shown by the leaders, Indian political leaders or the government, has helped our country to avoid any kind of the situations and tensions which we have seen in the Sri Lanka. So this was the second test for the Indian Federation. So 2 points we have discussed: linguistic states and the language policy. And the next is now center-state relations. So we will discuss that also. So now, students, we have to discuss the next point. Earlier, we have discussed the language policy and the linguistic states, and now the center-state relations. So, if we have to strengthen federalism in practice, then we have to strengthen the center-state relations also. Only by making provisions in the constitution about power sharing is not sufficient. In reality, we have to see how ruling party and the leaders follow these arrangements and practice federalism. For a long time, we have seen, that is before 1990s, the same party ruled both at the center and in most of the state, that is Congress. So this means that the state government, they can't govern themselves independently and control its own affairs. So when the ruling party at the state level was different, then party that rule at the center tried to undermine, that is lessen the power or weaken the power of the state. So this used to happen before 1990s. In those days, the center government would often misuse the constitution to dismiss the state governments that were controlled by the rival parties. So this all undermined the spirit of the federalism. This is against the federal structure. So after this now, all this changed significantly after 1990s. So this period saw the rise of the regional political parties in many states of the country. So this was also the beginning or the era of the coalition government at center. That is when no party got a clear absolute majority in the Lok Sabha. Then the major national parties, they had to enter into the coalition with many parties, including several regional parties, to form the government at the center. So when government is formed in the coalition, then power is also shared with the regional party. So this led to the new culture of power sharing and respect for the autonomy of the state government. So due to this coalition era, the trend also changed, and it made difficult for the central government to dismiss the state government in arbitrary manner without any logic, without any reason. They can now suspend or dismiss the state governments. So federal power sharing is more effective today than it was in early years of the constitution, when the constitution came into the force. So this is due to the coalition government which has been formed now. So this we discussed in the center-state relations, that improving these relations is one more way in which federalism has been strengthened. So we have to focus on improving these relations. Indian constitution clearly demarcates the power of the union government and the state government. But still we have seen that before 1990s, the union government, they influenced the state in many ways. And in the past, we have seen the central government, they often misuse the constitutional provisions in order to dismiss the state government that were controlled by the rival party. So this undermines the federalism, the spirit of federalism. So the judiciary intervened here, and they helped in improving the more autonomy of the states, and they rescued the state government which were dismissed in arbitrary manner without any reason and logic. So this we have seen that the federal power sharing is more effective today than it was in the early years of after the constitution came into being. So this is due to the coalition government which has been formed now.